February 1981. A man in a worn leather jacket stands at the departure gate of Los Angeles International Airport, clutching a one-way ticket to London. His hands shake slightly as he hands over his passport. The name reads Marvin Gaye Jr., but the face doesn't match the smooth Prince of Soul the world remembers. This face is gaunt, hollow-eyed, aged beyond its 41 years. Behind him, he leaves a country that wants to imprison him, ex-wives demanding money he doesn't have, and a music industry that has grown tired of his unpredictability. Ahead of him waits only the unknown. Marvin boards the plane carrying nothing but a small suitcase and the weight of complete financial ruin. The IRS is demanding $4.2 million in back taxes. His divorce settlements have stripped him of everything he once owned. His cocaine addiction has consumed not just his money, but his ability to trust his own mind. As the plane lifts off, Marvin presses his face to the window and watches America disappear below the clouds. He doesn't know it yet, but he won't see home again for over a year. And when he does return, it will be as a different man entirely. The first months in London pass like a fever dream. Marvin rents a small flat in Maida Vale with money borrowed from concerned friends, musicians and industry people who remember what he once meant to music. The apartment is sparse, furnished with mismatched second-hand pieces. He spends most days in bed, curtains drawn against the gray London light, existing in a twilight state between waking and sleeping. The phone rings occasionally, its shrill sound cutting through the silence. But Marvin rarely answers, letting it ring until whoever is calling gives up. When he does pick up, conversations feel like they're happening underwater. Motown executives want to know when he'll record again, their voices carrying careful patience. Lawyers need signatures for divorce papers, tax documents, contracts to be broken. His mother calls from Detroit, her voice small and worried, asking when he's coming home without understanding that he can't go home. That home is part of what he's running from. Marvin has retreated so far inside himself that these conversations feel like echoes from another life. The outside world becomes something happening to someone else. He develops a routine of sorts. Wake up in the afternoon, eat whatever food is easiest to prepare, sometimes walk to the corner shop for cigarettes, return to bed. Some days he doesn't speak to another human being at all. His voice, unused, becomes rough and uncertain. His cocaine use intensifies during these dark London months. It's no longer about chasing a high. It's about silencing the voices in his head that tell him he's worthless. Finished, a failure who has squandered every gift he was given. The drug helps blur the edges of his self-hatred, but it also deepens his paranoia. He becomes convinced that his phone is tapped, that people are following him, that even in London, the reach of his enemies is long. By autumn 1981, Marvin's situation becomes desperate. His money runs out. His visa expires. He needs somewhere to disappear completely, and through a concert promoter named Freddie Cousert, he finds refuge in the small Belgian coastal town of Ostend. Cousart, a jazz enthusiast who has long admired Marvin's work, offers him sanctuary, a modest apartment overlooking the North Sea. No questions asked, no expectations beyond the hope that distance and quiet might help heal a broken artist. The apartment in Ostend becomes both a cocoon and a prison. It's on the third floor of a weathered building with windows that face directly onto the sea. The sound of waves is constant. During storms, they crash like thunder. During calm periods, they whisper like conspirators. For weeks, Marvin barely leaves. He sits by the window for hours, watching the gray waves crash against the seawall, seeing in their endless repetition a mirror of his own futile existence. The ocean becomes both companion and tormentor, its rhythm matching the cycle of his thoughts. Rise, crash, recede, repeat. His daily existence shrinks to the essentials. He sleeps when exhaustion overtakes him, which is rarely at normal hours. He eats when hunger becomes impossible to ignore, usually simple things. Bread, soup, whatever his landlord occasionally brings up the stairs. He speaks to almost no one, and when he does, his voice sounds foreign to his own ears, rusty from disuse. The sound of the ocean fills his days and nights, a constant, hypnotic reminder that some forces are too vast to fight. During high tide, the waves seem to reach toward his window, as if the sea itself is calling to him. During low tide, the exposed beach stretches like an invitation to walk out and never return. During the longest nights when sleep refuses to come and the cocaine has worn off, Marvin walks to the beach. He stands at the water's edge, feeling the pull of the waves, understanding for the first time why people choose the ocean as their final resting place. It would be so easy to walk forward, to let the cold water numb everything, to finally silence the chorus of failure that plays constantly in his mind. But something holds him back. Not hope exactly, but a stubborn flicker of curiosity about whether this is really the end of his story. Winter in Ostend is brutal. The wind off the North Sea cuts through everything, and Marvin's apartment has poor heating. He spends most of December 1981 wrapped in blankets, surviving on tea and whatever simple food his landlord occasionally brings. His weight drops to dangerous levels. His hands develop a tremor that makes it difficult to write or even hold a cup steady. Friends who call describe his voice as barely above a whisper, a shadow of the instrument that once moved millions. But in January 1982, something shifts. Marvin begins to write again, not because inspiration strikes, but because silence has become unbearable. The words that emerge are different from anything he's created before. Raw, sexual, desperate. He writes about desire not as romance but as a life force, about physical connection as the only thing that might reach through the numbness and make him feel human again. The song he's crafting doesn't have a title yet, but its central idea becomes clear. Healing through the most primal form of human connection. It's not the spiritual salvation he once sang about in gospel-influenced tracks, nor the political awakening of what's going on. This is earthier, more honest about what a broken person actually needs to feel alive. Freddie Coussart arranges for Marvin to use a small recording studio in nearby Ghent, a modest facility with good acoustics and patient staff who don't ask too many questions. The sessions begin tentatively, with Marvin arriving late and leaving early, unable to sustain focus for more than an hour at a time. The engineers working with him notice his hands shake when he reaches for microphone controls, that he jumps at unexpected sounds. A door closing, a phone ringing, even the normal hum of recording equipment. Most unsettling, he frequently asks if they heard voices or noises that aren't there, pausing mid-performance to listen to something only he can perceive. The studio becomes a refuge of sorts, the only place where Marvin feels capable of any productivity. But even there, his behavior is erratic. Some days he arrives energized and works for hours, layering vocals and experimenting with arrangements. Other days he sits motionless in the control room, staring at the mixing board as if it might reveal some secret. But gradually, as winter turns to spring, the sessions extend. Marvin begins experimenting with drum machines and synthesizers, drawn to their mechanical precision and the way they don't judge or demand emotional availability the way human musicians do. He can program a drum pattern and it will repeat exactly endlessly without complaint or expectation. The sound he creates is unlike his previous work, more electronic, more European, influenced by the disco and new wave music that has emerged during his years of struggle. It's colder than his earlier recordings, but also more urgent, as if the machines are helping him express emotions too raw for conventional instruments. The drum machine's mechanical pulse becomes the heartbeat of something new, something that acknowledges the distance between feeling and expression. The lyrics to what will become Sexual Healing pour out of him during a particularly intense session in March 1982. He's been in the studio for 6 hours, building layers of vocals, when suddenly the words crystallize. They're not about a specific person or relationship, but about the desperate need for any human connection that might convince him he's still alive. The song becomes both a plea and a promise. If someone could just reach through his numbness and touch him, maybe the healing could begin. Recording the track becomes an obsession. Marvin returns to the studio night after night, perfecting every vocal nuance, every synthesizer tone. The engineers watch him transform during these sessions, seeing glimpses of the perfectionist artist he once was beneath the damaged man he's become. But they also notice that the intensity frightens him. When he listens to playbacks, his eyes fill with tears, not of joy, but of recognition. He hears in the music both his salvation and his condemnation. By summer 1982, Sexual Healing is complete, but Marvin hesitates to release it. The song feels too revealing, too honest about his brokenness. He spent his entire career crafting images: the romantic crooner, the social consciousness pioneer, the smooth sophisticate. This song strips away all pretense and reveals the desperate man underneath. The decision to release comes only when his financial situation becomes impossible to ignore. He needs money to survive, needs relevance to continue existing in the music industry. Against his instincts for privacy, he allows the song to be prepared for release, knowing that it will invite scrutiny into parts of his life he's tried to keep hidden. Sexual Healing hits American radio in October 1982, and the response is immediate and overwhelming. It shoots to #3 on the Billboard Hot 100, becomes his biggest hit in over a decade. Radio DJs call it a comeback. Critics praise it as evidence of Marvin's continued evolution as an artist. Fans embrace it as the return of a legend. But for Marvin, listening to his own song on the radio feels surreal and disconnected. The voice coming through the speakers belongs to someone else, someone confident, seductive, in control. He barely recognizes himself in the smooth delivery and sophisticated production. Success feels abstract, like good news about a stranger. The Grammy Awards ceremony in February 1983 represents the supposed culmination of his resurrection. Marvin wins 2 awards for Sexual Healing: Best Male R&B Vocal Performance and Best R&B Instrumental Performance. He stands on stage holding the golden gramophone, smiling for cameras, playing the part of the grateful artist who has overcome adversity. But backstage, away from the cameras, the old fears return. The applause feels hollow. The congratulations sound scripted. And most disturbing of all, the success changes nothing about the fundamental emptiness inside him. He thought that creating meaningful music again, that achieving recognition again, would somehow repair what was broken. Instead, he feels like an actor playing a role in someone else's life. The return to America comes with the success of Sexual Healing, but Marvin discovers that geographical change doesn't heal psychological wounds. He moves back into his childhood home in Los Angeles, the same house where his father still lives, where the patterns of violence and control that shaped his early years remain unchanged. The irony isn't lost on him. International success has brought him right back to the place where his deepest traumas began. Living with his father again at age 43 feels like a regression into childhood helplessness. Marvin Gaye Sr., now in his 70s but still imposing, treats his successful son with the same mixture of pride and cruelty that defined their relationship decades earlier. The physical violence has lessened, but the psychological control remains absolute. Marvin finds himself asking permission for basic decisions, apologizing for successes that threaten his father's dominance. The cocaine use, which had subsided during the intensive recording period, returns with vengeance in Los Angeles. But now it serves a different purpose. Not just numbing pain, but creating distance from a reality that feels increasingly unmanageable. The same voice that created Sexual Healing now slurs through conversations. The same hands that crafted perfect vocal arrangements now shake too badly to sign autographs clearly. Interviews during this period reveal a man struggling to reconcile his public resurrection with his private dissolution. When journalists ask about his comeback, Marvin speaks in careful, rehearsed phrases about artistic growth and personal evolution. But occasionally, unguarded moments slip through. He mentions feeling like he's watching his own life from outside, like the real Marvin died somewhere in Belgium, and what came back was just an echo. The financial success of Sexual Healing temporarily resolves his immediate money problems, but it can't address the deeper issues that created them. Within months, Marvin is spending compulsively again, not on luxuries, but on cocaine, on people who tell him what he wants to hear, on anything that promises to fill the void that success couldn't touch. The IRS debt that forced his initial exile gets replaced by new debts, new legal complications, new reasons to hide from the world. His live performances during this period become exercises in controlled chaos. Audiences expect the smooth, confident performer they remember, but Marvin can barely maintain the illusion. He arrives late, leaves early, and sometimes stops mid-song to stare into space or address invisible voices. Critics who praised his comeback begin to worry about his mental state. Fans who celebrated his return start avoiding his concerts. The contradiction between his public triumph and private collapse becomes increasingly difficult to maintain. Sexual Healing plays on radio stations around the world, its message of hope and connection reaching millions. Meanwhile, its creator sits alone in a dark room in Los Angeles, more isolated than ever, understanding that the healing he sang about was meant for everyone except himself. In his final interviews conducted just months before his death in April 1984, Marvin speaks about sexual healing with a strange detachment. He acknowledges its success but describes it as belonging to someone else, some version of himself that existed briefly in a Belgian recording studio and then disappeared. The song saved his career but couldn't save the man who created it. The tragedy of Marvin's final years isn't that he failed to rise from the ashes. He did exactly that, creating one of his most enduring and beloved songs during his darkest period. The tragedy is that resurrection and healing aren't the same thing. He proved he could still create beauty from brokenness, still touch millions with his voice, still command stages and win awards. But none of that could repair what was fundamentally shattered inside him. When Marvin Gaye Sr. shot his son on April 1st, 1984, the news shocked a world that thought they were witnessing a comeback story. But for those who understood the price of Marvin's exile and resurrection, there was a terrible inevitability to the ending. The voice that rose from ashes had never stopped burning. It just learned to sing beautifully while it consumed itself. Today, Sexual Healing remains one of the most celebrated songs of the 1980s, a testament to an artist's ability to transform personal devastation into universal art. But knowing the story behind its creation, the exile, the addiction, the desperate search for any connection that might make life bearable, adds layers of tragedy to every smooth vocal run, every seductive lyric, every perfectly crafted beat. It's the sound of a man drowning who managed to sing one more song before going under completely,